Marlon Humphrey's injury situation with the Baltimore Ravens has been rather vague with not a lot of updates, but Marlon himself gave an update on his situation. We'll talk about what he had to say and more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I am your host here, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. So that includes on YouTube in video form, where you can like and subscribe, and also in audio form, you can follow along and subscribe as well for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Here with me today is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail, back with me for a second go-round of recording this. We tried to record just a couple minutes earlier here, and I opened the show by saying, hey, the NBA draft round 1 is complete now. It's a 2-day thing, and the NFL and I think the football gods said, no, you're not talking about the NBA on your show today. Kicked me out of the room, kicked Q out of the room, said no. So, all right, Q, the Ravens are in the low period of their offseason. Not a lot going on. We won't mention the NBA. How you doing today?
I'm not saying anything. It's all NFL all the time. And yes, I am doing well. It is the NFL dry season. That's fine. It looks like it's going to kind of speed up real quickly before you know it. July 13th is going to be here. That's when the rookies report. Then the following week, you're going to have the veterans. And woo, let the fun begin.
Yeah. Ravens rookies report, again, the 13th, as you mentioned, and then the 20th for the vets, a little earlier than most of the rest of the league due to the fact that mainly they're playing the Chiefs in that opening game on Thursday Night Football. So these other teams that are playing on Sunday, on Monday, of course, they're going to report a little bit later than the Ravens. But Hugh, we've talked a lot about Marlon Humphrey and his injury situation, how he played last season, and kind of the vagueness surrounding his injury. John Harbaugh said he should be ready to go for training camp, but doesn't necessarily look like there's going to be updates before it. I think we're going to see if he's there on day one, and that's going to be the situation. But Marlon on his show, the Punchline Podcast, obviously Jack Settleman does that with him. Really great show. He gave a little mini update on this, and I want to kind of ask you, because obviously your expertise with sports performance and everything that goes on with the body. Marlon said that he's taken some body maintenance days, some rest days, essentially. So he did the first day, and then the other 2, he sat out. So when it comes to rest days and hearing Marlon say this, again, we don't know if this is stuff related to his calf injury, that, the injuries that he suffered last season, or if this is something new and nagging that has popped up. But when you hear a player say rest days at this early point in the offseason in terms of OTAs, minicamp, and whatnot before the training camp begins, is that a worry sign to you? Is that natural as you try to heal up an injury that might not be healing as fast as you want to? What does the word rest day mean to you in this sense?
So when I look at a rest day, especially for a veteran like Marlon, you're looking at a guy who already, his body physiologically, his body psychologically knows what to do. So an OTA, mini camp, or somewhat even in training camp, you don't really truly need it. I look at a guy, Jadeveon Clowney or Kyle Van Noy, who they both came in and just went out like gangbusters, had an amazing year. Once you get past a certain point, you know how to manage yourself, manage your body. You know what it feels like. And good teams allow for that communication process between player, management, training staff to happen. It's a collaborative effort. And as long as the regular season play is on point come Sunday, hey, knock yourself out. We're going to trust that you know what to do to get yourself ready.
And I think that's a big thing, because, again, we see this. I mean, look, Ronnie Stanley has his vet days. You want to go back as far as you want to with this. I mean, there are plenty of players that have vet days. I think for some people, though, it's like, oh, has Marlon been extremely injured over the course of his career like Ronnie Stanley, or is he in his 13th season? The answer to both of those questions are no. So when you're talking about rest days, I think when some people hear that, it's like, well, why is he having those? Why does he need those? He's not in either of those two categories. When in reality, look, some injuries, especially calf ones, and we talked about this last week, Q, and we've talked about it a bunch with just how tricky those can be. Is this something that Marlon will have to manage for the entire season? And again, we don't know what it is, so we're assuming that it's something that has to do with the calf. But if it is, are you managing that throughout the season? And I think if you do, that does start now with some of those rest days.
Oh my God, absolutely. And the thing is, you're never 100% once you get into a season. The thing is, what was told to me by the great Tom Moore, my receiver coach when I was with the Minnesota Vikings, who obviously he's coached for many a team and even won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady and all the things. And now I think he's probably more of a consultant for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But one of the things he told me, he goes, listen, so Tom Moore has a certain speech pattern. And so every time I talk about him or mention how he gave me some piece of advice, I immediately go into my Tom Moore voice. So pardon me, rest of you who've never heard him speak. It's just how I am. It's how I was, how I am now. So, Qadry, this is the way you're going to do it. You're going to go ahead through the season, and when the off season comes, you're going to recover. By March, if you're feeling great, awesome. Go out there and keep playing and training. But there'll come a time where when it comes to March, your body's not going to be able to recover. And so when Tom told me that, I was a young, probably in my second year in the league, I was like, Tom, man, I'm going to be fresh the whole 9 yards. Man, my last year in Indy, bruh, I knew I was going to retire because of the C3, C4 neck fusion. But I also knew, I was like, I just can't recover like I know I need to recover. And that's just it. Like, you realize. So my point is with Marlon, he knows what he needs to do. But yeah, like that knick-knack injury with the calf and the soleus and all that, I mean, that's your bread and butter. That's your, like, change of direction. That's your stick your foot in the ground, knock the ball out of the guy's hands, stick close to him. And if you can't do that, like, you got to, like, manage that thing. So I think John Harbaugh, for the most part, you know, we've seen how he's been throughout the years with helping guys, vet days and all that. I think Marlon is kind of getting into that category.
And, you know, Marlon, again, he is not 33 years old. He's going to turn 28 here in a couple of weeks. So he hasn't even hit that 30 threshold, which I know for some positions, Marlon doesn't play running back, but particularly running back, that's kind of the age of like, okay, what's the career timeline going to look like? But again, if this is something Marlon has to manage, it just is. And we don't know for sure if this is the calf or if it is another injury. I want to preface that because I don't want to make any assumptions and then just say, oh yeah, it's the calf, and then it's not. But I think for a lot of players, and you know this, Q, it's year-round. It's year-round body management. And if that means for certain guys that they have to take certain rest days, look, my panic level right now for Marlon, and we've talked about this, it's like a 2.5 or 3. And then if we get to training camp and stuff still is wrong, obviously it skyrockets. But I'm not just gonna sit here and say, oh, he's done for the season, because it's not what we're talking about. So I think for Marlon, he's a big part of their defense. But you look in that cornerback room, Q, and with him, it is Brandon Stevens, it's Nate Wiggins, it's TJ Tampa, Arthur Millette. There are a bunch of other guys. We talk about Jalen Armour-Davis and Pepe Williams. How confident are you in that room in general, especially if one or two guys do have to miss some time? Because we know the age-old saying in Baltimore here, it's they start the year with all 50 healthy corners, and they usually end the year with around 2 of them.
So you can never have enough corners. Ozzie Newsome, put the quote next to his name. The thing is, they have a good young group. Here's where, for me, from a training aspect, the those young guys they're built a certain way, whether it be, what was it? I think it was Ardarius last year who, he had his struggles as far as how he felt and how he was able to play or not play. And in my mind, I think it's one of those situations where you know that your off-field preparation, it can't be too taxing on you that it then affects your on-field play. And corner, I am telling you right now, the way in which they push so much energy into their bodies to change direction and stuff, then making tackles and all that, like that's intensive. And so, you got a great group. I just think that you got to be really smart when it comes to the off-field training element of it all.
Yeah, and I think to me, that's where it starts. If you don't take care of your body the way that you're supposed to, it will probably in some way, shape, or form come back to bite you when the regular season rolls around. So especially, and you talked about this with me last week, Q, these injuries for corners, it can be tough, getting in and out of breaks and keeping up with guys and having to exert all that energy. So I think different injuries mean different things for certain positional groups. And I think lower leg injuries for cornerbacks in particular, we've seen this. It's not just the Marlon thing with the calf last year. It's been guy after guy after guy, not only Ravens-wise, but across the league. Those can have some major impacts. But coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about some dark horse sleeper candidates for the Ravens, guys who we might not be thinking will have big roles at this point, but could step up in ways we might not even think about right now. Stay tuned. We got plenty to talk about here on the show. First, the show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps a ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style. eBay Motors is you covered. With over 120 million parts, the number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Although the price you need are the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Always exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. We are back with our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still talking with us here. Q, we talked about that corner room a little bit. Now I want to move into the entire team in the roster and talk about some dark horse sleeper candidates for this Ravens team. Guys who, right now we're thinking, oh yeah, that guy could be good. He could maybe take a little jump. But I'm talking about guys that, okay, maybe they're in that category now, but by the end of the season, we'll be saying, oh, that role was a lot more than what we thought it was going to be on June 27th. So I think the first guy, and I want to talk, well, actually, let me open the floor to you first. Do you have anybody that you think is a dark horse sleeper candidate this year that you have your eye on currently?
My BFF, Tavius Robinson.
There he is.
I'm telling you, him and Travis Jones, like, they showed the glimpses and all that, but from a dark horse aspect, it's no one's really fully expecting them. But we also know that all they need to do is just go out there and ball. And the Ravens are going to be so much better for the way they play. And then I'll give you a special teams guy who I think really is – he's got it right before him. And that's Josh Ross. I think if Josh can do it, special teams wise, the new kickoff rules, bruh. Kickoff return, bruh. My goodness, like that's significant. So those are my three. They're all on defense. Kick rocks if I didn't say anything on offense. Oh well.
Hey, you know what the Ravens mantra is, Q? It's defense. So you know what? That's okay. If you have I have some offensive guys. We'll get into those. But those are three really good names. And I think to me, especially with a guy like a Josh Ross, I think the way that special teams is going to be looked at now with these new kickoff rule changes, like you talked about, there's going to be different personnel groupings on the field where that distance is closed you need guys who you have some bigger bodied guys in there, but guys that can keep up and shed blocks, because there's going to be a lot more engaging now. There's going to be a lot more engaging in blocks. So guys that, again, are fast enough. You're not putting out defensive linemen on that team, but you're still getting guys that can do their job effectively and make sure that these big kickoffs can't break. Now, Tavius Robinson, I'm in full agreement with you there, and we've talked about it here. His role last season, I wasn't expecting too much from him. I thought he had some development to do, and he still does, but set the edge really well for them, played on early downs, and figured out a way to be competitive and compete for more snaps as the year went on. And in a year where, yes, Kyle Van Noy is seemingly their sure thing, Odafe Owe hopefully is going to take a big leap, but then you have some uncertainty with guys like David Ajabo and Adisa Isaac and even Robinson himself. There are snaps up for grabs here with Jadeveon Clowney departing, and I think that Robinson could certainly be the guy to take on more of them.
I think the thing is, it's a Jared Johnson situation. You got guys that are looking, obviously Adisa is young, and we got to figure out training camp, and he got to put on some pads. Boom, put that over to the side. At the same time, when it comes to David Ajabo and the way in which he can or cannot rush the passer, the way of it, Odafe Owe, the way he can rush the passer, but now fill up the stat box. But you need that guy to set the edge, and I think that's where Tavius Robinson can come in and be that Jared Johnson. Will he get to the quarterback? Sure. But will he set that edge and let Roquan come in and just get a tackle for loss because the running back couldn't bounce it to the outside? Or now all of a sudden you're doing those little jet sweeps and like, oh my God, he just crushed that dude because, you went Tavius Robinson's way and now you felt the funk. Or you got Arthur Millette and or Kyle Hamilton. Man, them dudes coming off the edge. I'll give you even another sleeper. Dark horse. Zach Orr. CEO. We're talking about a young defensive coordinator now. Mike definitely did his thing last year, well established himself as this kind of like outside the box thinker and the way in which he did his thing, and now he's over in Seattle. God bless him. Got our D-line coach, he's out. God bless him. We got our quarterback coach now. He's a coordinator now. I think he's in Carolina, right? God bless him. All that being said, Zach Orr, that's my overarching sleeper of the sleepy. Because he's going to have these guys and he's going to give them the empowerment understanding on how to help themselves. And I think for Arthur Millette, I think for Kyle Hamilton, even Odafe is going, and as I said, Roquan, it's going to be imperative that you got a guy setting the edge. BFF, Tavius, there you go. I said it.
Q said, grab your pillows, grab your blankets. We are going to sleep right now. We are going to sleep on Locked On Ravens. I like that one a lot too, because I think with Orr, he has never called. Well, look, his experience as a linebacker in the league certainly helps him. He was a guy that was imperative on those units back when he played. But as a coach, he has never been a defensive coordinator before. And there's going to be some level of a learning curve. But I think people are saying, well, how big is that curve going to be? And I think that the playing days are going to help him a lot in that, to where, will there be mistakes early on? Yeah, of course. It happens with everybody. Even with Mike McDonald, his first couple of weeks were kind of iffy as a defensive coordinator 2 years ago at the NFL level in terms of, what's he calling here? That Miami game. And I know we've kind of banned talking about it here on this show, but it's like when that Miami game happened and they blew that fourth quarter lead, the Ravens were playing all the wrong types of coverages and the personnel wasn't right. And that's part of just learning. And I think Zach Orr will have those learning moments, but we saw McDonald snap right back into it in week 3, and the rest is history. For Zach Orr, I'm very confident in him. The players are very confident in him. Roquan and everybody's been talking all this stuff about him and really building them up. Roquan said he's super proud of them. And of course, my saying is, if you want to be the defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens, just be their inside linebacker coach, and you'll get there eventually with how many of those guys they've had. But you took over the defensive floor, Q. I want to talk about a couple of offensive guys. I think Justice Hill is a player that I'm looking out for this season. I thought, he impressed me a ton in 2023. But I think with Derrick Henry's arrival and whenever Keaton Mitchell comes back, I think that people are kind of casting him aside and saying, well, once Keaton is back, there's no need and there's no role for Justice Hill. But let me tell you something. We know his special teams value, first of all. We know that as a gunner, he has been very valuable to the Ravens in that role. But two, he has explosiveness. He has some underrated speed, some underrated strength. And for a guy that, again, a couple years ago, Q, I wasn't even sure he was going to make the roster, has really turned his career around. And yes, the pecking order, when everybody's healthy, is going to be Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell, and then Justice Hill. But I'm not going to rule out Justice Hill just because they have two guys who are going to get more opportunities than Henry and Mitchell. I think Hill will get his as well.
Yeah, the thing is, what I've seen through OTAs and what's going to happen is you're going to have a guy that has made the squad because of special teams. And then you got a guy that when things hit the wall, we need him to be relied upon to seize opportunity. He has. EDC doesn't go out and look for other people because he has felt the comfort of Justice Hill as a running back that they can rely upon. He didn't have to go out there and get somebody else. What do you see? I guess the question would be from a production standpoint, because early on, Keaton Mitchell's not going to be there. I mean, we're looking at, 500 yards, 600 yards. I think red zone wise, clearly, you're going to have Derrick Henry, but there's going to be some times that, Justice Hill can sneak in there just to spell Derrick on certain, plays or formations or what have you. I think he could be a 6 touchdown guy, but yardage wise, what is your envision of this dark horse offensive guy?
Yeah, I feel like to me with his stats, he had 84 carries, 387 yards, and 3 scores last season. Also caught the ball 28 times. So he was actually, I think, a bigger part of the offense than people, you look back on the year like, oh, Justice Hill actually was on the field a ton and produced a ton. It could be a very similar year to last year. And obviously this does depend, Q, on how much more balanced the Ravens offense is this season in terms of run versus pass. They were first in the league in rushing attempts, but only 30th in pass attempts. And, there's a lot that has to do with that in terms of, look, they were winning a bunch of games by a lot. And they, how you get out of those games, you run out the clock and you just run the ball over and over again. But for Justice, I could, 350, 400 yards, I think would be a solid year for him. If he can go anywhere in the 3 to 6 touchdown territory, I think that'd be fine. I would say not a carbon copy of last year, but again, kind of how it worked was you have Derrick Henry, Justice Hill for now. Keaton's going to come back, but Keaton missed the beginning of last season and J.K. Dobbins got hurt. So it was Gus Edwards in Justice Hill, and then Keaton came back. And then it was Edwards and Keaton, and then Justice kind of had his role a little, okay, what's going on here? Then Keaton went out again, and Justice was like, okay, now my role is what it was. So it could be similar to what we saw last season, but I'm curious to see if they want to give him even more responsibility based off of what they saw last year. But speaking of more responsibility, the last offensive guy I have is your other best friend in Charlie Kohler. Can't get out here without talking about him in terms of the second segment. Kind of rounds it out with him. A guy that I feel like, we talk about Mark Andrews all the time, talk about Isaiah Likely all the time, but I'm telling you, I would love to see Baltimore run some 3 tight end sets with all 3 of those guys on the field. Defenses have to bring in their heavy personnel. You can work play action off of that. Something similar to what they did in 2019. But how are you feeling about Charlie right now?
Well, I think it's interesting in this. When you make the QBFF team, you just don't, all of a sudden, disappear. Okay? Charlie, bam. Last year's BFF. Year before, it was Isaiah Likely. You forgot about that. But they're all 3. Isaiah, Charlie, and now my guy, Tavis. Literally, TR, he's going to blow it up. But offensively, speaking of Charlie, what I am saying when it comes to being weird is that John Harbaugh, it seemed like he was reflective, yeah, he needs to gain weight. He's doing that. Going to see how he is as far as blocking. And then that was kind of that was it. So I think that outside of the head coach kind of like, being reflective about it, what I've seen through the mini camps, Charlie was balling, doing his thing. One time I saw a deep ball down the middle of the seam. Lamar threw him a beautiful ball and he dropped it. But then he comes right back and he made 3 other catches that were from Lamar that were just outstanding and in traffic. So I don't have any doubt that he is going to produce and show up. I like your dark horse. That's my dude, 88 in his house. What up?
There you go. Yeah, I mean, look, I believe in Charlie Kolar. Again, is he going to have as many opportunities as Andrews or Isaiah Likely? No, he's not going to. But I think there are ways Baltimore can utilize him this season. And if they give him a shot, he could produce in some limited role this season. Coming up, though, we're going to get into the very hot topic of Ravens social media right now, the Mount Rushmore debate. We'll talk about who is on it right now and our opinions on what it should actually look like. Stay tuned. Plenty to talk about here on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summertime means baseball. You can bet all of that over on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use bet on everything from MLB MVP, who's going to hit one out of the park. A lot with baseball. Obviously, Gunnar Henderson in that conversation for the Baltimore Orioles. You got guys like Aaron Judge, etc., who on FanDuel, you can get those odds. Plus, for football, if you want to get into a little football action, the Ravens open up as 2.5-point underdogs to the Kansas City Chiefs. That line will be changing, I'm sure, over the next couple of months. But if you want to get in on that action, do it on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We are back, our final segment of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still chopping it up with you here on this Thursday. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe, video form and audio form here on the show. Now, NFL Throwback ended up putting out a Mount Rushmore about a week or so ago for all 32 NFL teams. The Ravens, of course. Theirs caused plenty of controversy, and there was plenty of this is right or this is wrong, and then, whoever they wanted to put on there was on there. So who NFL Throwback had it was Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Jonathan Ogden, and Lamar Jackson. Now, I think one of the Ravens Mount Rushmores we could have Q is Qadry Ismail, Qadry Ismail, Qadry Ismail, and Qadry Ismail again. It's over. We're done with the conversation. That's it.
Man, I'm the little trinket more. Like I'm what's a mountain here? I don't even know a mountain range here. I'm not even, Mount Rushmore is hallowed ground, and my ego is not bruised one bit. I am appreciative that played my decade in the league. I'm appreciative that I was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, and I had a strong career there, and I had a strong career in Baltimore, and I'm ready to talk some Mount Rushmore of some of my teammates that I really, really admire.
There you go. Humble as ever, Qadry Ismail. Now, the Locked On Ravens Mount Rushmore, Devonta Freeman, Latavius Murray, Le'Veon Bell, and Tyson Williams. How you feel about that?
Man, no. My Locked On Ravens Mount Rushmore is Charlie Kolar, Isaiah Likely, who's my boy? Golly, you say Mount Rushmore, and all of a sudden I get a blank on.
You got to put Tavius on there. Tavius Robinson.
But
what position does he play?
Running back, and Lamar's MVP season.
Mark Ingram.
Thank you.
There he is.
Goodness gracious, Qadry. Like, what are you, gone nuts or something? Yeah. Oh, man. That was, amazing. Yeah. Might even have to throw in Bateman after his performance that he had in Cleveland when he was just housing dudes and kind of showed up on the scene.
Yeah, if Rashad Bateman makes the Ravens route Mount Rushmore, first of all, that means he had one heck of a career, which I think all Ravens fans would gladly embrace. But the actual Mount Rushmore, there is no problem for anybody, I feel like, with Ogden, Lewis, and Reed, right? Those three, I think, they're on there, and that's great. But I think the one that caused the most controversy was Lamar Jackson. because yes, he has 2 MVPs. His stat lines have been incredible, and he's such an impactful player for them. But the arguments that I saw were that he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet, and he's not retired. So my opinion on this whole thing is that I believe that Mount Rushmores should be for retired players only, regardless of how good a player is when they're active. Like, at the end of the day, Q, we know Lamar will be that 4th guy by the end of his career. At least I believe so. But the question is, do you put active guys on there? Do you not? I mean, do you feel like active players should be on Mount Rushmores still in their careers?
I mean, since I've been listening to all of the NBA debate and of their Mount Rushmores, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of guys have, like a LeBron on the list. Some would even have like a KD on the list, or some would have a Steph Curry. I just named 3 surefire Hall of Famers, and they're on a Mount Rushmore where, from an NBA standpoint, there's only one guy that I know is a lock, and that, in my mind, is Michael Jordan. So then you kind of got to go, and I mean, for me, it's Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson. Then I can, toss it up. Magic, Kareem, maybe, you could pick a guy. Is it Shaq because he was the most dominant? Is it Kobe because of just his passion and his love and squeezing out every bit of awesomeness he could as far as his competitiveness? Tim Duncan, goodness, like Oscar Robertson, Mr. Triple Double. Is it Steph Curry? Like, what I'm saying? Like, it's like, woo. And it's awesome conversation. I think for the Ravens, in my mind, there was some debate on, the retired players. Well, yeah. If it's keeping it with the NBA, I think Lamar is on the outside looking in. And then I go to Justin Tucker because of his resume being like on the all-time list, like up there. So when you're up there, like you're not like, he's top 3 or he's 1. So how higher do you need to be? Come on. People say Terrell Suggs, and because of his resume and how many sacks, obviously Rookie of the Year. Did he get a Defensive Player of the Year nod?
I believe. I thought he did.
Okay, so that's fine. But in my mind, like, you're not on the all time. Like, there are other guys that kind of roll off the tongue when you talk about DNs. And then, there's Marshall Yanda, but it's kind of hard, offensive line, quantifying some things. So, Justin Tucker, there it is. End the discussion. Holla.
I was waiting for the stream to go out when we were talking about the NBA. I'm like, oh man, here it comes. Here it's 3, 2, 1, lights out. But no,
yeah.
we got through it. And by the way, I appreciated your NBA to NFL crossover there. I liked how you did that. Suggs did win 2011 Defensive Player of the Year. So just wanted to clarify that one. But yeah, to me, I mean, I'm going to stick true to my retired players, and with retired players, I think I put Suggs on there right now. Again, by the end of it, like once Tucker ends up retiring, which hopefully will be never, but once he ends up retiring, he's obviously on there. But then it's curious because I did see some people taking Jonathan Ogden off and putting a Justin Tucker on or putting a Terrell Suggs on. And I'm just like, look, I get it if you want one of those guys on there. I understand. But the guy who you take off is Lamar in that case, don't you think?
Lamar in his wins is just legendary, but they're not on all time. It's up there. Don't get me wrong. So Lamarites, chill out. When it comes to MVP, sure, but Joe Flacco, like his in the heat of the moment, like Joe Flacco postseason, what is it, 10 postseason wins. He had a historic run to the Super Bowl, like legendary, and then he had the Super Bowl MVP. So that's hard for me to like overlook.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't mention Joe on the list, but I think for now, his resume for now is a tick above Lamar. Lamar didn't do it in the heat of the moment. Like, I know preseason is here. Man, that regular season, all of a sudden, you took another leap in intensity. Go ahead and make the playoffs and watch how intense it gets. People didn't truly give Peyton Manning his due until he started taking it to the next level in the postseason. Postseason, John Elway, same thing. Postseason for quarterback play, that's just where it's at, and so be it.
Yeah, you know, the other part of that too is, should Lamar not even be qualified until he wins the Super Bowl? Because obviously Terrell Suggs, Super Bowl, Justin Tucker, Super Bowl, Marshall Yanda, Super Bowl, Reed, Flacco, Lewis, Ogden, Super Bowls. Do you have to have a Super Bowl? Because look, MVPs, Lamar having those 2 MVPs, incredible accomplishment. 1 vote not going his way for 2 MVPs, almost 2-time unanimous, is an incredible accomplishment. But a Super Bowl means a lot, and it's very, very hard to do. We have a lot of great players throughout this league, Q, who have had incredible Hall of Fame worthy careers that have not won Super Bowls. It is extremely hard as an elite company. You are in that company of being a Super Bowl champion. What does a Super Bowl mean to you in terms of Mount Rushmore eligibility? Are you going to, Lamar's not eligible till he wins it, or are you looking past that if he doesn't end up winning?
So again, for this Mount Rushmore, I love how you said those Super Bowls. Those other guys, except for Jonathan, they all have MVPs by their names, but Jonathan he's like one of the all-time. So like, there's the Hall of Fame, and then there's the top 100.
Yeah.
Jonathan's up in the Hall of Fame as the top 100.
Yeah.
So shut the front door on the whole offensive line thing as far as Jonathan Ogden. He's a multiple-time All-Pro. All the resume. So yeah, the Super Bowl does matter. Like, yeah, that okay. Justin Tucker has made like game-winning, like historic winning, like Hall of Fame, put my ball and my cleats and my uniform in the hall, all that. Take nothing away from Lamar. His resume is not completed yet. It's just that those other guys' resumes are just a little bit thicker postseason and otherwise. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
And look, Lamar certainly has his share of, you know, NFL Kodak moments and incredible plays and historic comebacks and everything like that. But this is his 7th season, which again is kind of crazy to say. It feels like he was drafted yesterday. It also feels like he was drafted 15 years ago. But that's why, to me, it should be retired players, because the resume is not complete yet with Lamar. You're 100% right. Justin Tucker is a lot closer to having his resume complete, but what if he gets a 70-yarder? What do we do then? And that's something that we're not going to know until he's retired. So for me, and I hear you, like, all these guys, all their accomplishments, you can't discount them just because they're active players. But I think if you're talking Mount Rushmores, to me, I'm going to focus on retired guys. But I do not blame anybody one bit if they want to put active players on there. I completely understand both sides. We can all harmonize in unison, everybody. Retired players, not retired players. It's all right. But that's all I have for you here today, Q. Thanks so much for hopping on with me. Tell people where they can find you, what you're working on.
Yeah, man. It's missiletraining.com. Missiletraining.com is where you can find me, get in touch with me, communicate. Let me know your thoughts on not only just sports performance, but human movement training. Virtual sessions, easy peasy, do it all the time. At the same time, from what I am doing, literally WJZ, You can find me there. Purple Pregame, Purple Playbook. Those are shows that I'm regularly on. At the same time, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Ostreicher and I. That's all we do. We just break it down, chop it up, and let you know that the Devontae Freeman rumor is false. He is done. Never coming back because he can do awesome things for 8 yards and then all of a sudden, that's it.
Brings a tear to my eye that we're never going to see Devonta Freeman in a Ravens uniform ever again. It pains me so much. But you know what? I will take Derrick Henry as a consolation. I will take it. I'll take it. I think that he can maybe live up to Devonta Freeman and what he did in a Ravens uniform. But we'll just have to see when the season starts. Always appreciate you, Q. Thanks so much. And thank you for tuning into Locked On Ravens today. Be sure to subscribe and follow along video form and audio form if you want 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Coming up tomorrow, more Ravens content here. Stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow to round out the week on Locked On Ravens.